Welcome, everybody, to the Life of Brian podcast. And I have with me today Juan Pablo Montoya from Bogota, Colombia. And JP, nice to have you.
I need to be politically correct how I answer this. I cannot swear all the way around.
Well, listen, here's the thing. The reason why I wanted you to talk to me today is you have incredible insights. And I want to throw out a few things that I believe might surprise people. Obviously, for those that are not familiar, your entire career has been around racing, from Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar. In fact, two-time Indianapolis 500 winner. I believe the Daytona 500 as well, correct?
No, 24 hours. I've won the 24 hours of Daytona 3 times.
Okay. And now you're doing things over in Europe. You're racing over there as well?
I've just announced that I'm going to be racing in Europe. My kid is racing in Europe. So it's pretty excited to be here. And, I'm actually right now in a hotel room in Imola, in the middle of Italy.
Yeah. And, I've known you for a long time, probably a decade or so. And, here's what people don't understand, that you are more of an introvert than an extrovert. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
People,
I think when people see me, they think I'm completely the other way. But then when they get to know me, they go, oh.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I think that once you open up, you're a totally different individual than the stage Juan Pablo. Just like for me, being able to, if I go to a party, ironically, I sit in the corner and just kind of talk and, but at work, obviously you got to be front and center. And when we met, you were working at NASCAR, I remember at the time. And one of the challenges was, for you were not necessarily what would be considered fan friendly, but it's not, but this is the interesting thing and why I want to talk about this, and hopefully it's not uncomfortable. It's not because you were a jerk or you didn't want to sign autographs or you didn't want to be nice to people. This goes back to a conversation that you and I had maybe a month or two ago and it was almost an epiphany for me and why I wanted to do this. You said to me, I don't know if you remember this, I did not get into racing for money or fame. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And you almost felt like a fraud when you started achieving success in that arena. People wanted their picture, people wanted an autograph, and you're like, whoa, and so instead of just saying, I don't feel comfortable with that, you almost retreated a little bit because for whatever reason,
Go ahead. You don't want to be the center of attention. You know what I mean? Yes, I want to drive cars. Yes, I'm very good at it. Yes, I can go very quick in a race car and I can win races. But at the same time, I didn't grow up to drive a race car to go, oh my God, It's like, I think when you're an actor or you're a musician, you're fan driven. Where when you're a race car driver, for me, it's a performance, how good you are doing your job. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I never, and I'm nice to people, but I think one of the other challenges always is, like in NASCAR, when you met me, is I was a foreigner and I could perform as a foreigner. And a lot of people, felt like I was invading their inner NASCAR circle. And some people didn't find it too pleasing.
And the fact that you were super aggressive on the track as well. Right?
Yeah, I'm not very good at making a lot of friends.
That's okay though. But here's what's interesting from that conversation was that I didn't seek the attention and I retreated from it, which kind of gave me this perception of not being necessary, because I just wanted to race. I wanted to win. I wanted to do my very best. What advice, if you could go back, because obviously now you're old, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're getting up there at the same age, but if you could go back to that younger version of you, and I just want to understand, what would you do different, knowing what you know now, and I want you to answer this in terms of me as a professional. Maybe I'm a banker, maybe I'm a salesperson or whatever, that I have these same insecurities of not, I love what I do, but I don't know quite how to handle success, or I don't know quite how to handle uncomfortable situations. What advice would you give the younger Juan Pablo, knowing what you know now, to help with that?
I think one of the best advice you gave me actually came from you. And I was terrible at talking to people, and and you remember the structure about the White House with the red door and the car outside and the tennis racket and everything? That for me really taught me how to have a conversation and don't have that awkward silent moment. The awkward silent moment it's awful when you meet somebody. Hey, nice to meet you.
And that's called the conversation stack, which basically just kind of walks you through where'd you grow up, how did you get into racing, what do you love most, where do you love to travel? And you're right, people do tend to open up, but when you have two people that aren't sure which way to go, it becomes a challenge.
And as you said before as well, is when you talk to people and people want to meet you, they know who you are, they know where you came from, they know everything about you. And a lot of times people like talking about themselves. And I think this is it's a great way to people to feel comfortable and feel appreciated. And you actually get to meet a lot of really nice people and great people like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let me ask you this, because I know you're really busy and I don't want to take too much of your time, but how important is it to recognize ego as it creeps in to the way that, because your business, you could be the best driver in the world, but if you're unable to have a relationship with people, that's a problem, right? So how important is ego to be able to check it and know as a professional to say, I need to be more service focused versus just me and the ego piece?
I think I was very good. The reason I had so much success and I have so much success at driving is because I do a really good job working with the people around me. I really take care of the people that are around me, the engineers, the mechanics, the day-to-day people. That's my stronghold. The weakness that I always had is the bosses, because it's like they're your boss and it's kind of awkward conversation. And I'll give you an example. I just finished racing for Roger for 6 years, and Roger sometimes would tell me, call me more, text me, let me know how it went. And for me, it was like, a guy that runs, a $4 billion business, or I don't know how many $1 billion are worth his businesses. He knows how the race went. So I would go, hey, had a good weekend, great. But I didn't do that enough. And even like that, I have a really good relationship with Roger. But I felt that I was like on the, unnecessary, It's like, you don't want to bother them. And sometimes I think if you bother them, they appreciate that. It's in a way for them, when your boss is asking you and you go to your boss and you spend time with him, some people say that you're, like you're stroking them.
I know what you're saying, but how do you talking about fear?
But it's not. I think if you're doing a good job, they appreciate the job you're doing, and I think if you learn to build a good relationship with them, it doesn't need to be intimate. It's just a respectful. They want to know what's going on, and that will help. If you always do a really good job, you don't need that. But if you're struggling, if you have a good fundamental base, makes a massive difference.
Interesting. And so let me ask you this last question. As it relates to, because you're talking about that insecurity of like, I don't want to be a bother, I don't want to, but if you sit around and you just wait, my grandma used to say, if you wait until all the lights turn green before you head to town, you'll spend the rest of your life at home. And there's never that perfect time to start a new job or career, or, a family, whatever. How do we get that mindset of not being a coward, being able to push through and just go for it anyway? And in the racing world, it's like taking that chance to cut in is the difference, because you win not by minutes or seconds, but milliseconds. And in life, we tend to let moments pass by without seizing them. And is there any encouragement or any advice about pushing forward through fear?
Well, it's very simple. The reason you're there is because your boss already believes in you. You don't need to prove anything to him. The reason you got the job is because they're a fan of the work you do, your work ethic, and your performance. So if they're asking you how things are going, 90% of the time is not to bother you, but they want to know if you're comfortable, if you're happy, and if you need anything. And if you would open up a little bit, if you ever have an issue, then you have somebody that you can go to, and you can actually get a lot more out of your job, and long term it's going to be better for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's funny, it doesn't matter if you're in business, if you drive cars, if you're, a pilot. I mean, it's interesting how everything that we do, we're all kind of tied together with the same challenges, the need to feel important, valued, appreciated. I think we all struggle with, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? I think that if we go back to when you were racing for that first time, back in Colombia, and people were starting to ask for, your admiration or autographs or whatever, that we almost second guess ourselves. And how many times do you second guess yourself? Not you, but our listeners. How many times do you second guess yourself and you lose the opportunity because you didn't do it? That's really the big takeaway. Go for it. And if you're passionate, focus on
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the way I always looked at it is, if you don't try, you fail automatically. There's no, if you didn't try it, you absolutely failed at it. There's no middle ground that maybe could have worked. You absolutely block yourself from even getting there. If you try it and you fail, well, at least you can take home that you tried, you gave it your best. And the important thing for me is not when things go well. For me is when things don't go well, it's really, really important to understand the why. If you understand what you're missing and what else you need to do so the things work, then life is much easier. You need to be able to go, okay, it didn't work because I'm not experienced enough, I don't have enough knowledge, I don't have this, I don't have that. And that will create fears. But instead of hanging on to the fears and using all those things as tools of how can I improve myself, so the next time the opportunity comes, you're more prepared, then, you'll never know. You'll never know when the opportunity will come or where the opportunity will come. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example, like where I'm racing next year came out of, honestly, somebody didn't go to a race and they said, hey, you want to do this? And I was like, I'm not sure, I don't want to race there, but heck, it's just, I got the weekend off, let's try it. And I had a blast and I loved it. And they said to me, hey, would you want to run with us for a year? I'm like hell yeah, because I really enjoyed it. And it was an opportunity that a week later was never even in question.
So opportunities will present themselves when you put yourself out there. And I also think what's really, people don't know this, your son Sebastian, who's been racing basically since he was 4 or 5 years old, like the way you started, it's got to be really rewarding because now you're teaching him all the lessons you learned, so he doesn't have to go through that learning curve. And I think people miss
something that Sebastian has over me is, you could call it charisma or however you want to call it. People look at me and they think I'm an asshole without even knowing me. I have an asshole face. You look at Sebastian and they go, oh, such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he is a genuine, he is crazy how, it's a completely different mentality. The mindset is different because nowadays they're growing a different world, the social media, all these apps, and they do all these kinds of things all day long, and they're friends with everybody and they're friends with their teammates. When I was young and I was racing, it's out there to kill. It's like you want to destroy everyone. Today, you need to sweet talk them, but destroy them on the track.
That's interesting. And not to be lost in that is, we think because we're over a certain age that we don't need a mentor. We don't need to model or learn from other people, because if you adapt that approach, and I've seen you adapt, even for you, you've adapted tremendously over 10 years, right? And that's part of growth. One last personal story, and we're going to go. I remember when I was in Bogota, Colombia with you, and we were driving to the I don't know if you remember this. You were driving in I think it was a 4Runner, and we're driving out to your farmhouse, and that was the closest that I ever thought I was going to die. As these 2-lane roads and literally turning sideways as you're driving, and I was like, whoa, we should slow down. You said, Brian, I'm a professional driver. Sit back. And I that's etched in my memory forever. I wish that was back before we had GoPros. I wish we had that in the car.
No evidence.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know you're in Europe. It's late there, but it means a lot that you could share this with some of our listeners.
No worries. It was always a pleasure.
All righty. Talk to you soon.